Well, we have another example of a band that kind of came out of nowhere for me, and then once I started doing research on them, I'm like, oh, these guys have been around for a lot longer than I thought. So yeah, let's just dive into this one. Gemini by Delta. So Delta, as I mentioned, brand new band for me, even though they've been around for a while. They are a neoclassical prog band from Chile. And yeah, this is the first time I've heard of like neoclassical prog band, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it. I would say more of like a symphonic metal kind of an aspect, and they have gone through quite a bit of iterations from their first album of Apollyon is Free back in 2004. So like, we're dealing with a band that's like over 20 years old at this point. And they've put out, 2, 4, 6, this is their 7th studio record since then. There's been changeover of personnels. On this album, we've got Paula Loza on vocals, Nicholas Quinteros on keyboards, Victor Quintirda on guitars, Marco Sanchez on bass, and Andres Rosa on drums. And I'm sure I butchered all of that. That's why you guys come to this channel, to see me butcher and mispronounce all the names of all the band members. The first thing that I was introduced to this band was my buddy Ian from Rhyme Signatures said, you gotta check these guys out. It's very similar to a vector virus from Haken. And immediately that piqued my interest because I love that iteration of Haken. And I gave it a couple of spins and I can hear that. You know, there's a lot of that kind of genty, very technical metal stylings on this, but all wrapped around a very inviting and very immediate atmosphere. If I were to just kind of, put a little asterisk of that, I would say that it would be that, Vector Virus Haken, but also early career Evanescence that's found on there, more in that gothic style of symphonic metal, especially within the vocal works. Like Paula's vocals on here provide such a very unique and singular female vocal presentation, especially in a genre like, progressive metal that has a plethora of female vocals and female fronted bands. She's able to distinguish herself so that she's just not like another voice in the crowd. Her presentation is, one part operatic, one part brutal, but also one part very haunting and very heavenly in that sense. So I really like how she's able to produce a lot of the songs that are on here. Honestly, the thing that I love most about this record is their ability to craft very memorable and very inviting and exciting music. And I love on a track like At Last, the second track, that sustains a note and sustains a moment to allow the listener to get almost like hypnotized by the music. And I love when a band is able to do that. They're not just shifting from one area to another area to another area to another area without giving you space, without giving you that breath. And At Last does a brilliant job of kind of like pushing you up and then launch you into the air, and you're just soaring for a while. That's kind of the best way that I can describe the soundscapes of At Last. At Last and the final track, I know I'm kind of skipping over a lot here, but Cosmic Reverie and Cosmic Voyager, these two tracks flow seamlessly into one another to provide about 9 minutes worth of music. It just fills me with so much joy what I'm listening to. Like, on the one hand, the music is very predictable. You can see where the music is going and where the construction is going to happen, but it's how they're able to invite you in and just continuously surprise me with the amount of originality that they're having within a very formulaic structure. Just the overwhelming, optimism that's found within these two tracks. Even though it's all instrumental, it reminds me of, some of the more happy moments of Dream Theater, like just that power, that energy, that flow that is commanded on it. I can't help but listen to these tracks without a massive smile on my face. And that energy is found throughout the entire runtime of this album. Some of the other moments that I really like are The Great Dilemma. Like, this track might be one of the more technical ones. It's very chuggy. It never quite gets to the point of like a Periphery or a Tesseract in terms of the gent styles, but you definitely have that very syncopated, very on point, rhythm styles within the guitar works. And I love the piano work. Like the beginning points from The Tower, the third track, has this almost Diego from Haken sound on it. Like I'm thinking of like Atlas Stoned or some things from like The Mountain, that once again immediately draws the listener in. And once we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the actual track itself, it hits quite hard. It's so inviting. It's so infectious. It's so friendly, which is really funny to say within a metal work, that I can't help but once again have a massive smile on my face. The band also showcases their ability to handle really good buildups and payoffs. Look to find the end, the sixth track, and it's kind of like the midpoint of the album, like kind of coming over the great dilemma. It starts off somber, it starts off quite slow, but it gradually builds itself up into this really meaty and really dark moment. Like it's one of the more darker tracks off of this album, and it starts off from such a small and intimate place. Now, this album isn't necessarily perfect. There are some moments that kind of dip a little bit in quality, especially after repeated listens. Like my first 12 listens of this album, it was just like banger after banger after banger. But I do feel as if, especially within this presentation of music, it's a little bit like juicy fruit gum. Like once the initial flavor is digested, I'm kind of left wanting just a little bit more. And that's found on a track like So Wrong, which is one of the more ballady moments on this. I just wish that it had a little bit more of a punch at the end. Same with the track like Deeper Than the Deep. I was just kind of hoping for a little bit more at the final playout of this track. Like it's still fine and I like the gradual build that we have on it, but it just feels like a little too same. But I want to bring this back to the positives, because honestly, this album has a lot more positives than it ever does negative. And the final track that I haven't talked about, The Humanist, I absolutely adore. Like, I love how they're really playing with the soundscape. We've got this really interesting, like synth lead on here. And I love how they're blending this more symphonic gothic rock that we got with bands like Evanescence, but putting it more in like a djenty technical framework of a Tesseract or a Periphery. And like the blending of these two really works like chocolate and peanut butter. You got the dark aspect and the gothic aspect of the chocolate mixed with the flow and the dirge of the djent, and the peanut butter really flowing together and creating one heck of a Reese's cup. I think the metaphor is getting away from me in that case. But yeah, in the end, Gemini really blew me away. And I think at this point, it's one of my favorite metal records of this year, considering how many great releases we've got from the metal community. Like this one really takes the cake, like it keeps inviting me back. I keep diving right back into it. And tracks like At Last, The Humanist, and the 1-2 punch of Cosmic Reverie and Cosmic Voyager, those tracks alone are enough to keep me coming back. But after a while, I'm starting to enter a little bit of diminishing returns of the enjoyment of this record, but I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm ready to put it completely back onto the shelf. So yeah, in the end, I will say Gemini from Delta is one I absolutely love with my whole heart. Honestly, if they had an epic on this, a track that goes, singularly into 10 minutes to really, stretch their legs and get the music going, and was a little bit more experimental and the proggy side of things, we would have had a masterpiece on our hands. Very easily the first masterpiece of 2024. But where we sit right now, it's just one of my all-time favorite prog metal records of 2024. And hey, that's nothing to sneeze at. That is a really great thing to have. So that's my thought of Gemini from Delta. What did you guys think about this band and this record? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.